Hi, guys. I miss you so much. I hope that you are staying healthy and happy and safe and enjoying your times at home. But I miss you so much that I'm going to do a couple things that I really miss with you and really enjoy at school. So I'm going to read. I have a whole stack of books that I read as a kid, and I'm going to read them to you guys. There are some Disney books in here. And then I'm going to go to the school and get some of our favorite books from our classroom. I'm going to read Cinderella first. Cinderella. I'll do my best to show you the pages, okay? All right. Once upon a time, there was a girl named Cinderella. She lived with her stepmother, and the stepmother did not like Cinderella. She made her work very hard every day. Cinderella had two stepsisters. Their names were Drizella and Anastasia. The stepsisters never had to work, and they just pranced around the house in their fancy dresses. And they always made fun of Cinderella because her dress was so plain. One day, a letter came to the house. "Drizella, Anastasia," cried the stepmother. "Listen to this." And she read the letter out loud, and it said, "The king is giving a ball tonight. His son, the prince, will choose a wife. Every girl in the kingdom must be there." "Then can I go too?" said Cinderella. "You?" cried the stepsisters, and they laughed. Ha, ha, ha. "But it says every girl in the kingdom must be there," said Cinderella. The stepmother smiled and said, "Of course you may go, Cinderella. You may go if you do your work first and if you have a dress to wear." "Oh, thank you," said Cinderella, and she ran up to her room. Some mice lived in Cinderella's room. They were Cinderella's friends, and she had even made the little clothes for them. "Guess what?" she cried. "I'm going to go to the ball at the palace." "Hooray!" cried the mice. Then she showed them the old dress. "It just needs a little mending," said Cinderella. "Maybe just a sash and maybe some beads to make it pretty." "Yes, yes, Cinderella!" cried the mice. "Cinderella!" the stepmother called. Cinderella went downstairs. "I want you to clean the floors, wash the windows, dust the drapes," said the stepmother. "But I did that yesterday," said Cinderella. "Do it again," the stepmother said. Cinderella worked as fast as she could, but there was always one more thing to do. "Cinderella! Cinderella! Cinderella!" "Oh, dear," said Cinderella. "I will never have time to mend my dress." "They make Cinderella work, work, work," said the fat mouse named Gus. "She will have no time to fix her dress," said a skinny mouse named Jack. "We can do it," cried the mice. "We can fix Cinderella's dress." Gus and Jack sneaked into the big room, and the stepsisters were dressing for the ball. "I hate this old sash," said Drizella, and she threw it down. "I never want to see these beads again," said Anastasia, and then she dropped them on the floor. Who's going to pick them up? Jack grabbed the sash, and Gus picked up the beads. They took them to Cinderella's room. "Look, we found these," said Gus. "Now we can make Cinderella's dress really pretty," said Jack. They measured, they cut, they folded, they sewed. They worked and worked as fast as they could, and the hours went by quickly. Cinderella had to help dress the stepsisters their dresses. Cinderella had to help the stepsisters with their dresses. When she was done, the stepmother said, "It is time to go to the ball, girls. Are you ready, Cinderella?" "No," Cinderella said sadly. "I didn't have any time to fix my dress." "Too bad," said the stepsisters. "You must learn to work faster," said the stepmother. They watched Cinderella go up to her room. Oh, that's so sad. When Cinderella opened the door, she saw something wonderful. Her dress was ready. "Surprise!" cried the mice. "It's the prettiest dress I've ever seen," said Cinderella, and she put it on. Cinderella ran down the stairs. "Wait!" she cried. "I can go now. I have a dress." The stepmother and the stepsisters could not believe their eyes. "My sash!" cried Gisela. "My beads!" cried Anastasia. They ripped off the sash and they pulled the beads off. Cinderella's dress was ruined. "Come along, girls," said the stepmother. "The prince is waiting for you." And off they went to their palace. And Cinderella was left behind. Cinderella ran into the garden. The mice ran after her. "How did I wish to go to the ball," said Cinderella. "But it is no use. Wishes never come true." "Never, my dear," said a voice. Cinderella looked up. There was a little woman with a wand. "I'm your fairy godmother," she said, "and I am here to give you your wish." "Now, let me see," said the fairy godmother. "I need a pumpkin and a horse and a dog." "What luck! They are right here. And yes, I need some mice." When the mice heard this, they began to run. But the fairy godmother stopped them with her wand. When the mice heard this, they began to run. But the fairy godmother stopped them with her wand. "And now for the magic word," she said. "Bippity-boppity-boo." She waved her wand, and the pumpkin turned into a coach, and the horse turned into a coachman, and the dog turned into a footman, and the mice turned into white horses. "Now hop in, my dear," the fairy godmother said. "But my dress," said Cinderella. "Oh my," cried the fairy godmother. "I almost forgot." Can she go to the ball in a ripped dress? Probably not. A ball is where you go in a very fancy dress and fancy clothes. She waved her wand again. Cinderella looked down. Her dress turned into a white gown and her shoes turned into glass slippers. "Oh, thank you," said Cinderella. "Now hop into the coach," the fairy godmother said. "But remember, all magic ends when the clock strikes 12. "I won't forget," said Cinderella, and off she went to the palace. At the ball, the king was complaining. The prince was complaining. "The prince hasn't met all the girls in the kingdom," he said, "and he has not found one that he likes." "Give him time," said the Grand Duke. "He has had enough time," cried the king. Just then, Cinderella came into the ballroom. When the prince saw her, he bowed. "May I have this dance?" "Yes," said Cinderella. All night the prince danced with only Cinderella. They danced around the floor as if it was a dream, and everyone said, How lovely she is! Who can she be? The hours went by quickly, and suddenly the clock began to strike midnight, which is 12. Cinderella ran down the palace steps, and she ran as she... The hours went by quickly. Suddenly the clock began to strike midnight, which is 12, and that's when the magic ends, remember? Cinderella ran down the palace steps. As she ran, she lost her glass slipper. When the prince reached the steps, Cinderella was gone. He picked up the tiny glass slipper. The girl who wore this slipper is the girl that I want to marry, said the prince. He told the Grand Duke to find her. Even before Cinderella was home, the magic ended. The coach turned back into a pumpkin. The coachman turned back into a horse. And the footman turned back into a dog. And there before Cinderella and the mice, just as before. And the next day, the Grand Duke took the glass slipper to every house in the kingdom. At last, he came to the house where Cinderella lived. Cinderella was up in her room. First, Gisela tried the slipper. Her foot was much too long. Then, Anastasia tried the slipper. Her foot was much too wide, which is fat. Are there any other girls in this house? Asked the Grand Duke. Nope, said the stepmother. Just then, Cinderella came down the stairs. Who is this? Asked the Grand Duke. She's only the maid, said the stepmother. I don't care, said the Grand Duke. She must try the slipper. And it fit perfectly. Then Cinderella reached into her pocket and pulled out the other glass slipper. The Grand Duke bowed to Cinderella. You are the girl the prince says he must marry, said the Grand Duke. So Cinderella went to the palace and married the prince. And they lived happily ever after. Aww. The end. Bye, guys.